What's up, guys? It's your boy, Optimistic Fins fan, back with another Miami Dolphins recap review of our Week 4 game against the Tennessee Titans. And boy, oh boy, was that fun to watch. I think in all my years of being a Dolphins fan, this has to be top 5, 10 of one of the worst just football games I've ever seen. We're back to the days of where watching a Miami Dolphins football game is just a chore and a task. What I've liked about this team over the past couple of years is that McDaniel has at least made it fun to watch this team play, putting up points and all that good stuff. Now it's just a shell of what this offense and this really what this team used to be. And so I'll kind of go in depth, kind of first off, just how the game went. Some stats, I'll throw in some stats that I have written down here. Talk about some players that I saw some good things out of, some players that I kind of was disappointed in, which is kind of obvious. But we lost the game 31-12 in what was one of the most embarrassing football games that I've ever watched. Being a Miami Dolphins fan, there's a lot of games that I've been embarrassed about. So the list is huge, but yeah, it's just deplorable. And, I kind of went into it last week in my recap video about, the systemic problems this team faces. And it starts up top with Chris Greer, with Mike McDaniel. I kind of already went into those issues. We'll touch on it again. But really, it's just more of the same with this football team. And like I said last week, it's a shell of what it used to be. And it seems if this team continues to move in the trajectory that it does, I see the locker room being lost, especially with some of the players that we have. So, yeah. So I'll give my thoughts on that, and we'll kind of see where this video goes. Last night I was at a loss for words, really. And just thinking about getting on here and talking about this team, it's just definitely rock bottom and at a low point. So we'll first kind of start off with, just kind of diving deep into this game and kind of So again, Miami Dolphins lost the game 31-12. My prediction in the previous video was 20-9 win. I gave you my keys. They needed to run the football. Was number one. Not dumb the playbook down, but, simplify things, which McDaniel did not do. He rolled out his offense like Tua was running it. And, Tyler Huntley was about as good as we should have expected. Some of us in the fan base expected him to light it up and all this. And he's been here, 2 weeks, a week and a half. And so, realistically, the expectation was just do what you can. And that first drive was promising until Tyreek Hill dropped a screen that was thrown backwards. We'll get to Hill in a little bit, but from that point on, the game kind of shifted the momentum, and Miami was never really able to get the momentum back. Just to kind of go through some stats here, the biggest thing coming into the game was running the football consistently. And, there were 30 rush attempts, which, it's not terrible. They just couldn't get it going and, falling behind the sticks. And the issue with the run game is too much lateral. McDaniel was just calling way too much east to west. And when they were able to attack the middle of the field, it worked, even throwing the football. I don't know why he diverged from that. It was all east to west. I mean, these screens did not work. You could tell the Titans were loading the box up, stopping the run. Even the corners were, right on the line. So they were not afraid of Huntley pushing the ball down the field. And you can tell because there were multiple opportunities with Tyreek Hill. Miscommunications or whatever it may be, bad throws. Tyreek Hill was open on 2 potential touchdowns. So that's the first I've seen all year where Tyreek has been that open. That shows me that they didn't play a lot of, cover 2 high or cover 2 shell, whatever you want to call it, because they didn't respect Huntley throwing the football across the field. They wanted to stop everything laterally. They wanted to stop everything short. And they had everybody in the box. They had corners pressed up there. to where they didn't let the speed affect them. You could tell end arounds to Tyreek were ineffective. Getting the speeds outside was ineffective. And so Tennessee did a good job stopping our lateral movements and stopping the speed from getting going, which opened up a lot in the passing game, in the deep passing game, but Huntley couldn't capitalize on that. So that's kind of what I saw there. Another plaguing kind of thing for Miami was third downs. Miami was 2 for 12 on third downs. They were like 1 and 11 or something like that last week. That's poor. And a big reason for that, two things. One, putting yourself in bad positions on first down and second down. There were a lot of third and longs, and Huntley had no shot. No shot to convert those. And then the thing that has plagued this team for almost 2 years now is the third and ones short game. We just cannot get short down yardage. It's because this team is not set up to do that. They're not. They're weak, like I talked about last video. They're a weak, soft football team. And so they're not built to get third and ones. And what are they resorting to do? Fourth and one, they do a reverse to Tyreek. Or not a reverse, it was an end around to Tyreek, and he didn't get it. But if you can't get 1 yard and push it 1 yard in between the tackles. And so the third down problem continues to haunt this team, and a lot of it has to do with us not being able to capitalize short yardage, and also just laterally they could not run the football at all, which kind of set them up on first down. They'd run these like tosses or whatever, and it would be like a 3-4 yard loss, and now we're already at 2nd and 14. So McDaniel did not do a good job of putting his team in good positions. And that has a lot to do with play calling, situational play calling, which I called back to last video. McDaniel has not been a good situational play caller. Really, that's one thing that has plagued him as a head coach. He did not have a good game yesterday, McDaniel. He did not put Huntley in the best positions to win. He did not put his team in the best positions to win. And going for it on fourth down when we are in no position to be doing that early on in the game. He was 1 for 3 on fourth down. I think they've gotten maybe 2 first downs all year, or fourth down conversions all year. So he continues to put his team in poor positions. 184 total yards. That's just not going to get it done in the NFL. 105 rushing yards, 3.5 per carry. Again, not good enough. Achane was 10 carries for 15 yards. Achane didn't have one of his better games. Whether it be the holes were just not opening up for him. I feel like he was trying to bounce a lot. He wasn't hitting the hole hard. Honestly, Jalen Wright looked a little bit better hitting the holes. I believe he was like 9 carries for like 40 yards or something like that. And so Tyreek Hill, 4 catches for 23 yards. I'll talk about the players in a little bit, just kind of some players I was happy with, some players I was not happy with, but that's just not going to get it done. Waddle, 4 for 36. These stars that we paid were just not producing. Huntley, 12 QBR. I don't know what we really expected for him to kind of be our savior until Tua returns. But that was the offensive side. The defensive side, 244 total yards, which is pretty good, all things considered. They got a turnover early. But the problem is 142 rushing yards. So almost, the majority, 100 yards of that, 244 was indeed rushing. 142 rushing yards. That's not good. And so the defense played admirably. They kept them in the game. We can't expect them to be on the field the whole game and then stop every single drive. Sooner or later, that bend but don't break is going to break. And then the floodgates opened, and they just started pounding it down our throats. And when the defense senses that the offense is not going to score points and move the ball, then that's going to weaken the defense as the game progresses, and you're going to see what we saw at the end of the game where they lost sense of control. But we're still continuing not to be able to stop the run. And that's a recipe for failure. And so that's kind of the stats that I got. Injuries, 2 notable injuries that I saw. Poyer was out. I don't remember the injury, but I can't remember if he came back into the game or not. And then Jalen Phillips, which was arguably the biggest injury, notable injury of the game, hurt his knee, came back for a little bit, and then got super upset, threw his helmet on the sidelines because he couldn't go anymore, limped to the locker room. We didn't see him back. And so hopefully he's okay, but it didn't look too good. So that's going to be a huge loss moving forward. And so that's kind of where we're at. At the end of the day, the Miami Dolphins, the way they were structured coming into this year, they were not built to be sustainable. And what I mean by that is from inside out, from the trenches, from the offensive line to the defensive line, outwards, they were not built to sustain the ebbs and flows of the NFL season in regard to especially injuries and just the way that the game evolves throughout the season. And towards the end of the season, you need to be physical, you need to be durable, and you need to be able to win up front, run the football. And they just are not designed to do that. They are not designed to be a power running football team. They were built to be this finesse passing football team. And unfortunately, with Tua going out, we need to be more of that power running style. And unfortunately, we're just not built that way. The offense that has been constructed was constructed for one guy, and that guy is Tua Tagovailoa. When Tua is not in the game, the offense cannot be ran really effectively. It's very complex, and it's built for one guy. And so you see teams around the league, putting backup quarterbacks in, and they can actually look presentable and can even sometimes win the ball game for you. In Miami, it's not the case because these guys cannot come in and run this intricate offense effectively. Louis Riddick and Orlovsky, I think, did a pretty good job yesterday on the call, really kind of diving deep in the issues of this offense, putting in Huntley and Thompson, and how even these motions, the way Tua kind of knows when to snap the ball and gives the guys time to kind of set up those motions and have the motions run effectively. Little things like that, Tua does so well, almost at an elite level, that when you put these guys in, it's virtually impossible. Like the penalties last night with the 3 illegal shifts on that drive, it has more to do with just the guys setting up. It has everything to do with the commander, the general of the offense, Tua, being out. That's not sustainable in the NFL. You can't just have an offense built for one guy, and when that one guy goes, the whole thing crumbles. You can't be set up that way. And I think McDaniel, when he took this job, it was so Tua-centric that I think he lost something about the offense as a whole. And I get wanting to set up Tua to succeed, and he has. It's been a very good marriage with both of them. But when Tua's out, it shows the holes in this offense, and it shows the holes in Mike McDaniel's overall thinking. Last week, I called for McDaniel to go with Huntley and to shorten the playbook, but also kind of simplify some things. He didn't do that. The offense wasn't simplified. He rolled the offense out with how it has been for the past 3 years since he's been there. And once I kind of saw that, I knew kind of the trajectory of how the game would go. And that was disappointing. It told me a lot. It told me that McDaniel is stubborn. It told me that he's way too confident in the offense that he's built. And unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to get fixed. He went on his press conference saying, anything's up on the table and everything's up for change. But the fact that he hasn't realized it until now is a problem, because I don't think after seeing what happened in Seattle, rolling out kind of the same exact, I didn't see changes at all from the Seattle game to here offensively. I didn't see any changes. So to me, I don't know what was installed in practice to help Tyler Huntley succeed. Nothing seemed to be different. I didn't see many zone runs. I didn't see many creative, things that were developed for this week to help him succeed, which is discouraging. It was very discouraging. I coming into it, I was very intrigued with McDaniel when he was hired, and I was looking forward to what he was bringing. And, the offense and how it splashed early on was very, it was good to see coming from a longtime Dolphins fan that we never got that. And so I was on the Mike McDaniel train early. But when Tua goes out and all this goes to, goes up in flames, this happened this year, but also a couple of years ago, it gets me thinking, is it Mike McDaniel that made Tua, or was it Tua that's been kind of pushing Mike McDaniel? And I think they've both helped each other. And I think one doesn't work without the other. And so Mike has kind of hatched his wagon on one horse, and that horse is currently unavailable. So now he's at a point where he could, his stubbornness can now start to lose the locker room. And so once that happens, you're done as the head coach of a football team. Once you lose that locker room, it's over. I've seen it countless times on this team, whether it be Joe Philbin. He lost that locker room that week 4 game in London, and he was fired right after. Adam Gase lost the locker room. He was fired. And so I've seen it too many times. And if McDaniel continues with this stubbornness and doesn't change, he will lose the locker room and eventually his job when that happens. But aside from Mike McDaniel, I talked about how this team structurally wasn't built the right way, and that starts with Chris Grier. And I saw a picture of his last 3 drafts this morning on Twitter. I'll post it on TikTok later. And it just almost made me want to puke. The talent he's brought in the last 3 years in the draft has not been good. You look at his draft so far this coming year, and it starts up front with that first-round pick, Chop Robinson, which I don't believe should have been the pick. I believe he should have went interior offensive line to help this offensive line out. Obviously, he went a different route. I understood just because of the injuries on the edge position. But Chop Robinson is not ready to be a 3-down defensive end. When Phillips went out and Chop went in at the end of the second half, they ran right at him, and that's when Pollard broke that 41-yard run. And so Chop is not ready, and you can see when he rushes the passer, over pursues, gets pushed out of the play. He's not big enough, he's not strong enough, doesn't have enough pass rush moves right now. He has speed, elite get off. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he can't build into a good player, but we needed a day one starter. Just the guys Chris Grier has brought in on the the veteran side. Teron Armstead, injury prone. Poyer, injury prone. You're bringing in these guys that have injury history. Odell Beckham Jr., injury prone. Anthony Walker, injury prone. David Long, injury prone. And these guys are hurt. And we wonder why these guys constantly get hurt. Not building the trenches the right way. You let Christian Wilkins go. You don't do anything to supplement that. You let our best guard go. You do nothing to supplement that. You continue to roll Liam Eichenberg out there. 4 years. He's proven he cannot be a valuable starter. You roll him out as your starting right guard. And granted, yes, Wynn is hurt, who also was a free agent acquisition, who also had injury history. You can look at the players he brings in, 9 times out of 10, they have injury history. But they're cheap, so he brings them on the low. Maybe they won't get hurt, maybe they will. That's the dice that you roll. And unfortunately, it's time where Grier has been here through different regimes. It's time to look at Grier, hold him accountable. He is not equipped to build this team the right way. And so as the season ends and a new draft comes up this next year, and we're looking at who's going to lead that draft, I don't feel comfortable with Chris Grier leading that draft. I don't. Just his drafting history, I don't. And so if the season continues where we're at, Miami's at the number 2 pick right now. If we continue to kind of fall in this trend and we get a top 5 pick and we're able to kind of take a step back and evaluate the quarterback position, Tua, good player. I believe at the time he deserved to get paid, but we cannot roll into next year with this. If Tua gets hurt, the season's over. You have to draft a guy to mold behind him. And whether that hurts Tua's feelings or not, frankly, it's team first. And if I was Miami with a top 5 pick, I'm looking at the Shedeur Sanders. I'm looking at Cam Ward. I'm looking at Jalen Milroe. I'm looking at, I don't want to say it, but Carson Beck. I'm evaluating all of these top quarterbacks coming out because I'm looking at drafting one. You have to at this point. And so I don't trust Chris Grier leading that search. I don't trust Chris Grier building the trenches because he's proven he cannot, especially on the offensive line. The draft picks that he's brought in on the offensive line have not been good. Leon Eichenberg, Solomon Kinley. Yes, he drafted Robert Hunt, but he didn't re-sign him. I just don't trust Chris Grier, and I'm on the train of now getting rid of him. It's time that Miami, moving forward into the offseason of next year, need to build with a new leader up front, and that's Chris Grier. Bring in a new GM and let him decide Mike McDaniel's fate. And if they do decide to kind of go in a different direction in regard to coach, I understand. Mike McDaniel is young. I still do believe in him, but I'm really, really close to kind of saying we need to move on. And I'm not going to make that judgment yet. It's way too early. As we kind of move into week 5 in New England, going on the road, this team is at a low point. And if McDaniel doesn't change his offense and adapt, it can get ugly very quick. So that's kind of my recap of the game, last night's game. I will put out a video this upcoming week, later in the week, probably Friday. Drop it before the weekend, giving you my predictions. Hopefully kind of injury news will come out and kind of who will start at quarterback. That decision will be out as well. And I'll give all my thoughts on predictions and, my keys to next week. I just have to kind of digest what I saw and just these continued systemic problems that this team faces. So, again, I thank you guys for watching. I know this review was a little bit long, but I just had to get that off my chest about, this team and how it was built was just not sustained or not set up to sustain long-term success. Unfortunately, it's been proven time and time again. So I, again, appreciate you guys. If you watched the conclusion of this video and sat through it, I do appreciate it. I really do. And, continue to like, subscribe, share the video out so we can kind of get other Dolphins fans and other football fans kind of on our side and continue this journey together. So, again, I do appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.